This is at Gamer Kratos. Do you think the microtransactions problem in modern gaming is pushing more people to prefer indie and retro games?
Yeah, it's possible. But excuse me. I think it might be pushing more people to try those out. But don't forget that indie games especially also have plenty of DLC and microtransactions. Some of the biggest phone games and whatnot were indie and required, they had microtransactions as well. There's also look at one of the biggest indie hits like Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight has a bunch of DLC packs, and they've actually been really good about releasing them, I think mostly for free, but it's been re-released on multiple systems. There are lots of ways that indie games and there's lots of ways that indie games will get you to buy into it more times without seeming like they do. As far as retro games, sure, but I'm not certain that it's even just microtransactions. I think it's how the game is played, and I've always said that there is something very appealing about retro games in terms of you can pick up and play. For the most part, you can play for 15 minutes, you can play for 5 hours, and if it's a good game, you can have fun and just start or stop it whenever you want. I do think perhaps burnout on the genre of modern games is also included, along with microtransactions and along with the feeling of incompleteness and the need to use microtransactions maybe what will push people back to retro games that were sold as complete products.
Have you had that experience? People walking in your store saying, "I'm tired of AAA games with microtransactions. I want to buy an NES."
People say that shit all. Not to me. That would be a fairly contribed situation.
You know what? I'm sick of the Battlefront 2 shit. Give me a Super Nintendo.
Give me an NES. I'm done with micro. In reality, now that I say that, there have been some people who have been dramatic enough to be similar.
Sure.
But yeah, what I do hear, obviously people are coming into a retro shop to buy a retro system. If they know what they're walking into and this is what they're doing, that is a large part of a conversation that I am going to hear. It's not unlikely that I will hear that.
Sure, but my argument is that they are totally disparate markets for the most part. Modern gaming is like 98% of gaming. So I can't imagine a world where if you're sick of Battlefront 2, you can't replicate that experience on retro games. So it's not, you can't just, if you want to play that sort of game, you're stuck with that sort of game and the bullshit goes along with it for the most part.
Right. I'm not, and that's kind of my thing, I guess, as well, is when I talk about differences in styles of gameplay, pick up and play versus sink a bunch of time into it and stuff like that. I don't know.
I would say more single player maybe versus multiplayer going forward, since AAA companies are abandoning a lot of single player stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not a lot of multiplayer only retro games out there.
There's a lot of multiplayer only retro styled games now.
Sure,
but not actual retro games.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a switch. It's like, oh, I want to play a cool single player game. I'm more likely to find that in a retro game versus modern. There's still a lot of indie stuff out there that's eschews multiplayer for single player because it's just cheaper to produce and it's easier to make.
You're very tired and you look like you're melting a little bit at the corner of your eyes. I'm high, so we should keep moving. I'm just saying.
I was in the middle of a thought there, Ian. I know I look like fucking trash. You called me Gollum with a wig before.
I thought your thought was ending.
Now it has, Ian. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. By the end of this, we're going to be fighting.